billable law firm through subscription services with Mathew Kerbis. Smart Lawyers Position to Transition. I am Victoria Collier, and this is the Smart Lawyers Position to Transition podcast. And I am with our special guest today, Mathew Kerbis, and we will be discussing how subscription legal services can help you grow and sell your law firm. Smart Lawyers Position to Transition transforms the lives of attorneys who want better, more valuable law firms that in time want to sell and find a life after law. The information provided is not intended to be legal, financial, or any other kind of advice, just great information and entertainment. So, I work with a lot of buyers and sellers, and what I do know is that buyers want predictability. Clients want predictability. And heck, for that matter, law firm owners want predictability. And that, as the way I understand it, is one of the biggest benefits to having a subscription-based business, even a law firm. And so I'm so excited today that our guest is Mathew Kerbis, the subscription attorney and winner of the 2024 James Keene Award, recognizing innovative virtual law firms that serve the broad middle class. He's on a mission to affordably serve clients at scale via the subscription model and inspire attorneys to ditch the billable hour. Amen, brother. His firm leverages automations and artificial intelligence to offer more accessible and reasonable prices like legal advice starting at $20 a month, $50 a page. Can I say that, or do you want me to say the $19.99?
You're good.
All right. As host of the podcast Law Subscribed, he interviews other lawyers using alternative fees and experts who can help lawyers move beyond billable time. Whew! That is so refreshing, Mathew. Thank you for being here.
Well, I am refreshed myself to be here, and I love the business quid pro quo. And you came on my podcast, and now here I am on your podcast. So live into the name, quid pro quo. Love it.
That's right. That's right. Well, so let's just start with the billable hour, because I think it's a hot topic and a touch point and so sensitive for so many lawyers because we come out of law school and that's what we're taught. I mean, I was a paralegal and I was billing, my time as a paralegal before I became a lawyer. So why are you such a proponent of getting rid of the billable hour?
I mean, I've kind of always had that entrepreneurial mindset. Like 4 friends and I started a nonprofit in high school to try to raise money for a good cause, right? And so I've always I've been trying to find out what's the best way to do something and how can I also do it myself. And when I left law school to go work for other law firms, they don't teach how to practice law. They don't teach you anything about the business model of law. So I had to be an intrapreneur instead of an entrepreneur. And so I did that, and I tried to create innovations within the law firms that I was at, and it was really hard to do. And then I thankfully didn't have to bill time until really my third law firm that I worked for, which is the last one before I went solo. And that was minimum 40 billable hours a week. And I remember getting off the phone with my dad once and thinking oh, that was 0.3. I got to go record that. I was just thinking, what am I doing with my life? This doesn't make any sense at all. And just a lot of things came together, and I sort of landed on subscription as being a great way to not just increase access to justice, but also increase my bottom line. I felt I could bring in more clients and more revenue with that model. And so just that began my journey into trying to figure out, can this be done for law firms? And I discovered that some attorneys had been doing it.
Well, as I said, as a paralegal, I was doing billable time. And I remember, that I had to also bill 8 hours a day, which, I mean, technically, if you're billing 40 hours a week, 8 hours a day, you're working at least, 12 hours a day or, 60 to 80 hours a week. Because every single thing you do is not billable. But one of the things that always struck me was, when we sat around the conference table as a team and we're going through the mail and the partners were sitting there and they would look at every piece initial, and each one was billed at 0.1, right? 0.1 is 6 minutes. It took them 15 seconds. And so, then of course you've got 8 hours right there in a 1 hour meeting because you've looked at, 30 pieces of mail. And I always thought, is that right? I mean, is that ethical? So I think that it calls into question even the ethics around, billing that way, because I mean, there's even been cases like when you're standing in the shower and you're thinking about your client, can you bill for that? And when we get rid of all that, we go to flat fee billing or subscription billing. You don't have any of those questions come up. It doesn't matter how much time I took on something or didn't take on it. You're paying for value. Um, so, did it take you 3 law firms before you decided, hey, there's got to be a different way? Or what made you start your own practice after having worked at 3 different law firms? What were the great things about working for those law firms, and what drove you into starting your own practice?
Yeah, well, the first law firm I worked at was a foreclosure defense firm. So we just kept a roof over people's heads while the banks were foreclosing on them. And then, of course, my third firm was insurance defense work. So, I grew my soul before I sold my soul, is what I like to say. And then I ended up with net regular soul by the time I started my own firm. So that practice, though, the attorney I was working for, he didn't think about it this way, but he just charged a flat amount every month that we could keep somebody in their homes. And like that was the value, right? The longer we could keep the case going ethically within the rules of civil procedure, we were going to do that for them. And if we had a reason to appeal a case, we would appeal the case, right? To keep them in their homes as long as we could within the bounds of what the law and our license would allow. And so like that was kind of the subscription model. We just didn't think about it that way. And even if you have, and I've had lawyers on my podcast that are like, I don't have the subscription model. I just have a recurring flat fee every month. I'm like, that's the subscription model. Like when you start thinking about it that way, and you look at the resources out there by like guests I've had on my podcast, Robbie Kelman Baxter, Ron Baker, Tien Zhou wrote the book Subscribed. Like you start thinking about your business in terms of the subscription economy. And there's so many things that you could do when you actually think, okay, this is a membership business. This is a subscription business. And it opens up your opportunities. The second firm I worked at my employer was very entrepreneurial. And the way that he approached running a law practice, I learned a lot there, even though I was only there for a couple of years before going to the insurance defense firm. And to their credit, they were very open. I mean, after the pandemic happened and half our billable time went away, they were very open to launching a subscription model at the firm. But it's hard to build a practice within a practice. And so it was just easier for me to leave and start my own thing, because it's really hard to have multiple business models in one business. And so I felt like I wanted to use a subscription no matter what in my firm. And that the only way I was going to be able to do that was to start my own practice. So I did.
So many of us are, familiar with the very first subscriptions, which was like the TV Guide way back in the day when you started paying for the TV Guide. And then there was, magazines, and then there was music subscriptions. And then certainly Blockbuster, where you could go and pay a subscription to watch movies. And now Netflix is that. But talk to us about how it works in law, right? The only familiarity I really had under what my mind of subscription is the car that drives by me with a magnet on it that says legal services $19 a month. And so I don't know if that's what you provide or not, but tell all of us, as if we know nothing about the subscription model within the law, what does that look like?
Well, like you said, no ethics advice provided on this podcast, but the first place you got to look are your local rules of professional conduct and what is and isn't allowed. Usually, there is something that permits some sort of fixed or flat fee or some other synonym for that. And really what the subscription model is, and the way that I even say it in my engagement agreement, which is on my website, everyone could go look at it, subscriptionattorney.com/#engagement, is that it's a recurring fixed fee. That's what it is. And what do you get with that fixed fee is really important. Is the fee reasonable? Because that's usually what it comes down to when you're talking about legal ethics, right? Is it reasonable? And then what is the value that you're actually getting? And one of the things that I do for my subscription is they're getting access. Now, they also can get legal advice, but they get access to certain things. And all of them everything's stated on my website. I don't hide anything behind first you have to sign an engagement letter, or it's going to be in my engagement letter. Everything's public. And my engagement agreement and my website actually work in tandem the way that I've set that up. And so you got to look at what your local ethics allow, and then think about whatever price you're going to come up with for and it could be weekly, it could be monthly. I've seen annual subscriptions for like estate planning, like an annual maintenance plan, an annual check-in. So there's no one right way to do it. That's one of the reasons I love having the podcast. I learn from lawyers all the time, different ways of doing it. So I can't say like this is the way to do it, but I can talk about the way I do it. And that is I pick the lowest possible amount that I could charge for the market I'm trying to serve. So you still have to think about it as a business owner, who's your target market, who's your customer client avatar, the lowest price you could serve, and what do you give them? And then what are the subscriber benefits? For me, it's access to scheduled calls, no more than 15 minutes at a time, unless we're working on a project and I want to give you a link for 30 minutes or an hour, access to below market flat fee rates. And you can ditch those below market flat fee rates if you want to just pay me a higher monthly amount. Say if you're a small business owner or a freelancer and you want me to have a certain amount of projects per month, and I'm no longer counting pages like the $50 a page a la carte pricing or other flat fee services that I offer. But really what it comes down to is just you just look around at subscription businesses that you like, that you want to emulate. I like Costco and Amazon Prime. And then make sure you adapt it to comply with your local jurisdiction's rules of professional conduct. And it's going to take a little bit of experimentation, which I know lawyers are a little hesitant to do.
Well, what I love about it, and I'm a huge advocate of the subscription model, and like you said, there's lots of different names for it. There's lots of different ways to do it. And you talked about your way. The way I was able to do it in an estate planning firm was, we still charged obviously for the legal services, but to have access to us and the subscription to maybe do some updates for free, have conversations with your successor trustees, things like that. We charged. Originally it was annual, and then I decided that the administration was just too burdensome for that, so we went to monthly. But just the dollars and cents of it. If you're charging $20 a month and you've got 200 clients, as an example, that's $4,000 a month that's just coming in every single month without any new business, right? That pays the light bill. That might pay an assistant, right? And so it just makes sense there. So
and that is a marketing income, not a marketing spend. Because the way that I like to think about it is, would you rather spend money marketing or make money marketing? Because think about your Amazon Prime or your Costco subscription memberships, if you have those. When you run out of something, you're running low on something, where are you going to go to buy the thing? You're going to go to the places you're already a member. So they're not, yes, they are getting some subscriber benefits, but I would think of that less as a loss leader. Think of that $20 a month or whatever it is for your market as a marketing income. You're making money marketing.
Well, and they're out there as your biggest advocates as well. So they're telling other people about, your services and how glad they have this access to you at any time they want. So yeah, they're paying for your marketing, which is also brilliant. In addition to that, one thing I'd be remiss if I didn't mention it on my own podcast is that it's a predictable income. That's an asset that increases the value of a law firm. And now lawyers can't say, well, where's the value if it's, if I leave, there's no value. Well, are those subscriptions going to leave with you? Don't they still want the services of the law firm, right? So I think it really increases the multiple on the value of a law firm when somebody wants to either pull equity out of it or sell it, or for any of the various reasons we do valuations. So,
and I definitely had that in mind, Victoria, when I started the law firm, was thinking about how could I create recurring revenue, not just for me as a business owner while I have it, but to create a more valuable asset when I sell it. And I was just talking to an attorney coach today who is more like inquiring about how I do what I do, so she could help her attorney clients. And she asked me why I don't have a bio on my website. Well, first of all, I'm charging such little money that the types of clients I'm trying to serve are do they just care how much does it cost and can they solve my problem? So they don't care who the lawyer is, first of all, but also I'm trying to build a brand, and I want the subscribers, while they of course are only working with me because right now I'm a true solo, I know that if I want to sell this thing in the future, I'm going to have to hire or outsource, but I am still trying to build the brand around the firm and not me, the lawyer. So in addition to the subscription model, I'm trying to also I'm 100% involved in the business now, but I know that can't last forever if I want to sell this thing for the highest multiple I can on the subscription model whenever I'm ready to exit.
Or have a life, outside of the law, even when you still own it. But you said something that I want to highlight and change, and that is you said at the price point that you're doing, you don't need a bio. I would say at any price point, any type of services, you don't need a bio on your website. It should always be about the team and the brand. I subscribed to a service years ago where it was called Celebrity Branding, and they were a marketing company for lawyers, and they were lawyers. And it was all about making me the celebrity brand. And I get that to a point, but it's not necessary. And then when I went to sell my law firm, I had to undo all the celebrity branding and just, highlight the team on everything. And it really, I was still under subscription with them. And I went back to them and I said, change everything. Don't put me in the forefront. And so if I want to pay for that twice, sure. I can start off with my big old ego and that, everybody wants me. But the fact of the matter is, you said exactly what is real. And what is real is people have a problem, they want a solution, period. Nothing needs to be said after that. And they're not looking for the Matthew, they're not looking for the Victoria. They're looking for the solution to their problem. And the only reason they're looking for the Matthew or the Victoria, if that happens, is because they got a direct referral and we did not set up the conversation properly with our referral to refer them to the firm versus the lawyer, right?
Right.
So what you said is just gold. It's just gold. So make sure that, I want to make sure that's highlighted when it comes out and is broadcast. So
Pause,
to do all that, though,
change it from 2 times speed to 1 time speed, go back a few minutes, and then we'll rejoin you in a few more minutes.
That's right. So with that, right, with a subscription program, one of the things that I hear from lawyers all the time, because I'm always pushing it down their throat, they need to have a maintenance program or a subscription program of some sort. And the one thing I hear from lawyers all the time is, oh my gosh, that's going to be so hard to administer and run and all that kind of stuff. So, I would imagine you just said, you're doing everything yourself. I would imagine that you have really adopted some AI or some, streamlining systems and processes so that you're not sitting there all day billing all these people because you've still got to deliver the work, right? So, what have you implemented that helps streamline the subscription model?
Yeah, and so there's no one right way to do it. I'm just going to talk about the way I do it. And when I give my CLE presentation on it, I talk about all the different kinds of ways you could do it. But what I do, and I didn't build this overnight when I was working at the other firm, this was many weekends doing this, but I'm using all no-code tools. Personally, I'm using SuiteDash integrated with Stripe to power like the bulk of it. And so in SuiteDash, it's like white label. It can be HIPAA compliant client portal software that you could set up onboarding automations. So you set your, qualifications. And, for me, it's like, are they in Illinois or transacting in Illinois? Okay, you're qualified. So my qualifications are super low. And also if it doesn't work out, it's only $20 a month. I could drop them, they could drop me, so it's easy for that. But then with Stripe integrated there, I could set all my different subscription levels and flat fee levels before I even launched. And I changed them a little bit. And from time to time, I'll do like 14 pages for the first time. Like nobody had exactly 14 pages for me to work on. And so when I build that invoice, I save it. And then for future use, it's just in a drop-down menu, right? But once they subscribe through the website, just using a link, not even an embed code, just a link on a button on my website, they're into that onboarding flow, which is built in the back end using no code with SuiteDash. It has all these automations in the background that gets them paying right away. And then it just continues to charge them every month. I never need to look at it ever again. And then when they have a flat fee thing, I do go in there and I do that manually, though I'm looking for a non-WordPress solution that lets me let it be self-serve for the client without me having to go in manually and without me having to pay somebody to build a software from scratch. So that they could just self-serve, change subscription levels or check out with the flat fee work. Because right now that is a little bit of a manual process. But I really also leverage Calendly more than anything else. And that's how I'm able to control my calendar. Everything goes in my calendar: personal time, family time. Whether it's my main hustle as the attorney at Subscription Attorney LLC, or when I'm side hustling with the podcast or consulting, that everything goes in my calendar. And Calendly allows me to schedule things when I'm available, and I set up automations in there, like buffer time in between things, so I never get double booked. And so, like, really living by the calendar and Calendly is like the next most used tool that I use. And that some of that already kind of uses AI, but when it comes to like the analysis and the drafting or the redrafting, that's where I'm leveraging tools like Paxton, GCAI, and then some of the other free ones out there like Claude.
And so really using the, electronic apps and all that kind of stuff that we have available to us that we didn't have years ago, like when I got started.
Right.
Do you think you need to be a techie to really have a practice like yours that is scalable and sustainable for the subscription model?
So I represent a lot of freelancers. And what's great about that industry is they will help you do this stuff if you don't know how. Like websites like Fiverr, or some of the other ones out there, Upwork, or just like going on LinkedIn or networking with local freelancers. If you represent small business owners, even better, two birds, one stone, to find them to help you set this stuff up. It is nice to be able to do it yourself, because when I have an issue with my website, I want to change something, I want to change an automation. It took a lot of time to figure out how these things worked, even as somebody who's tech savvy. But then once you figure it out, it's kind of there. And they have like all the software wants you to keep subscribed. This is why the subscription model is beautiful. I'm subscribing to the software. They want me to be successful. So they're going to make it super easy. They're going to have YouTube videos. They're going to have FAQs. They're going to have a knowledge base. So there's lawyers, we're great at doing research. They will walk you through it. You can email their support team. They want you to be successful using their software. So if you didn't want to pay a freelancer to come and do it yourself, there's a lot of resources for you to be able to figure out how to do it. And I'm not really using legal tech, which means it's super affordable. And so this doesn't have to break the bank. For like brand new lawyers, I told them all it cost me my first year when I got started was $5,000 to have a virtual law firm. That's it. And the largest thing I was paying for was my legal malpractice insurance. And then it was just all the other software that I was using to power my practice, right? And that was with a very little marketing spend. So yeah, you don't have to be a techie. It helps, but you could find some people. I'm able to do it myself, but I'm a big believer in outsourcing when that makes sense for you to outsource. I have a CPA, right? I'm not doing my own taxes. Like, outsource where it makes sense. And if you're not a techie, outsource that.
And so the last big question I have is around just the education of the subscription model to clients, right? Because clients are not used to that. It's new. It is innovative. It is very different than what they've been taught. They've been taught two things. Number one is I can go see a lawyer for free, because that's the whole contingent model, right? And I only pay when they win. Or I'm going to go and I have to have lots of money because they're going to bill me every single hour and that kind of stuff. And so, just for them to get over those hurdles to even think about seeing a lawyer, much less seeing one that has a totally different model. How do you get that message out? How do you, overcome all of that? Because I'm in a business just like yours. Lawyers don't think they can sell their law firms. So there's just so much education that has to be done to even have the prospective client open their brain and their minds to the fact that, hey, there's something beneficial for you. How do you do that?
I was just on a panel at Tech Show with Stephanie Everett, and she said a great thing about it. She's like, the industry needs a Got Milk campaign to help that education gap, to help close it. But until that happens, what I've found is institutional clients, those who are used to paying by the hour, love this model once you are able to, once they see it in action, because it is kind of hard, right, to get them to sign up, because they're like, well, wasn't that just the retainer model? It's like, well, no, it's month to month, and you want to maximize your subscription benefits, and I want you to maximize those, because that means you're going to stay subscribed, so I'm going to be doing a lot of work for you. And so that's sort of the way that I've been explaining it recently. And they love it, because now they could predict, as a small business owner or an institutional client, like, they didn't know how to budget their annual legal spend. Now they can. And even if it goes over, those prices are transparent, or they know they bump up a subscription tier and what that increase is going to mean for the remainder of the year for their budget. So they love it. For everyday people who are the latent legal market, not even necessarily access to justice, just people who were priced out or wanted pricing certainty and can afford to pay a lot too, they really like it as well, because that's how they pay for everything else. They pay for everything else knowing what it's going to cost. And it's been harder to sell them for that, because they're just like, well, yeah, this is what everything should cost anyway, if they never actually hired a lawyer before. The hardest thing to sell with this is, if you're in the space like I am using the subscription model, is problem avoidance. So estate planning attorneys know this problem well, right? It's harder to sell problem avoidance. And the way that I've tackled that is, it is just easier to help people when they do have a problem, and then convince them as you're solving their problem that it makes sense to avoid future problems, and then convert intention-seeking clients to problem avoidance clients.
Great. I love that. So what would you want the last nugget to be if we never heard from you again, because you were so inundated with all of your business under your subscriptions and you just couldn't talk to us anymore? So what's the last piece of information you'd like to share with our audience?
Well, the last thing then would be www.lawsubscribed.com, where I talk to other lawyers who are using the subscription model, and my name, Mathew with 1T, Kerbis.com, where you could listen to this podcast there and all my other past speaking engagements where I continue to talk about this. But really, the biggest takeaway, I think, is there's massive, massive market opportunity in the latent legal market. It's been pegged at $1 trillion or larger worldwide market opportunity for lawyers and legal service providers. And the only way we're serving that market is if we change our business model. And if we don't change our business model, I think we will lose our monopoly on legal services. And whether you think that's a good thing or a bad thing that we do, in any event, you're going to then have to compete at that point in time. And it's going to come whether you like it or not. So it behooves you right now to start thinking about, if the billable hour was deemed unethical 1 week from now and I had 1 week to redesign my business model, what would I do? And go do it.
Do it under the subscription model. Let's be clear about
Of
that.
Course. Of course.
So, yeah. Well, you definitely have an outstanding podcast, and we want people to be able to go there and learn more about this as well, because it is new and it's wonderful. And again, I'm just going to say that, from my perspective, it increases the value of your law firm. So I love having the opportunity to speak with, and interview lawyers who find different successful ways to offer services and help people. And you are doing that with your subscription services, AI, and definitely by ditching the billable hour. So thank you for sharing your practices with us, Mathew.
Thank you so much for having me on the show.
You're welcome. Well, if you want to think outside the box like Mathew does, then I invite you to become a member of our private Facebook group called The Art of Buying and Selling Law Firms, and continue to listen to this podcast, Smart Lawyers Position and Transition. You can also find more information at our website, quidproquolaw.com. You have been listening to Smart Lawyers Position and Transition, which is a weekly show bringing timely and valuable information to lawyers seeking to sell or buy a law firm between now and years from today. The show is available 24/7 online, anywhere you listen to podcasts, as well as on our website, quidproquolaw.com.